So you have a very specific language build. There is a heavy influence of Ivri inside of the English and Spanish language. And people are supposed to be given a choice, but governments have been established with Baal worshiping. So you didn't have a pure government that had a separation of church and state. There was always some form of Quran or ancestral worship that was put into the state contract. Here's why. You have a 10 Commandments that were given by Allah. There's an ancient contract, and it was agreed to help people from murdering each other. Now, the Torah that people read today is miswritten, but it also had statutes that were made up by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh made up a bunch of statutes in the Torah. Now, Yod-Heh-Vav-Hehs, there were some of them that were descended from them naming their children Allah. The Bible has statutes made up by God, the seventh tribe of Israel. The Quran has statutes made up by a B'nai of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. In a deceptive language, English, the Bible is made, which if people believe in God, which is God is under the contract of the Torah, and the Torah has a contract of the 10 Commandments. So families that believe, they break themselves down through their own language, because I have a video on this where you've got people, and according to the verbal contract, they agree that they're sheep or some sort of animal in the ancient language, because according to the Bible and what Yeshua was talking about, there was these 10 Commandments that he talked about, but he also talked about the Torah and how people can use that as, if people accept that as a contract. So say somebody's going to a church, they believe in the Bible, and they keep calling their children son. Well, as a son, Adam is in control of the animals, if you know ancient Ivri. So if you keep calling your kid a sheep, then you have Adam. Now, who is Adam? Well, you'll have to figure that out for yourself. Adam, remember, in the heart of Adam is murder and killing. So all of a sudden, according to the Torah and people believing in God, that they call their children animal names, or they refer to their children as animals in ancient Ivri, in the Ivri contract, all of a sudden, and if they're Hemel, all of a sudden, Adam has authority over them. So Adam can tell you to get naked and go run in the woods. You get naked and go run in the woods. If Adam tells you to do what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, only if you're agreeing that you're a sheep, and if they pray and say they're God or something like that. And they say they're God, something else happens. But if they say that they're somebody's son, so daily language can break people down. So people are saying they're son. Then what you have is, once they agree that they're an animal, according to the Torah contract, Adam would be in control of them. If they don't agree to the contract, if they don't pray, if they don't go to church, if they don't do any of this stuff, but then if they're in school, they say a Pledge of Allegiance, and they say that Pledge of Allegiance to God, all of a sudden, they're now back into a contract. So here's where a lot of people are getting screwed. Unfortunately, they agreed to the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, the 10 Commandments. If you've noticed, there's a repeated pattern with these that helps break the person down and give the person that has the least body modifications more authority over them. So then if you're supposed to keep the word that you say that you're going to do, and somebody says that to you to do something, then you would have to do that. But that doesn't always happen. So this is how this is all built up. Now you also have in the Bible and in the Torah, in that contract, curses. Now the curses aren't clearly defined. Neither is what being a Elohim is defined. None of this stuff is clearly defined. However, somebody did define it, because later on Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh had verbal agreements. So what a specific Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh says is what the curses would be. And then people said Amen. So you have people that are learning about the curses, and they learn about the Bible, but it won't matter because they get midgetized. That's like the major curse that you see, is people shrinking and getting shorter. Besides getting shorter, what you're going to also see in the future is a lot of midgetization and genetic diseases, and they're messed up legs. I want you to think about this. If you watch, there are certain movies that are reflections of what happens in the services and stuff. And you'll see in certain movies like Dune and stuff, where you've got that gigantic fat guy that's working for the goat beard, and his legs are all messed up and like dangling, and their kids are crazy. But it's not 100% reflection. So don't make sure that you don't get the movies and stuff mixed up with what's going on in here, because it's clearly stated. And when people have a signature and they agree to a name, they write that signature a name, and they agree to become slaves. Some of them, they're born slaves. After like less than a week of being born, they're slaves. Their willingness to bleed and their willingness to serve. But this is where Yeshua came into the picture. Yeshua came into the picture and said, you know what? You guys are looking at people as animals too much, because the person has to be proven to be an animal in some circumstances. Other circumstances, besides being separate from animals, a lot of this stuff is gearing people to kill other people. When you have clearly in the language the 10 Commandments. So you'd be killing somebody if you misled them, according to the Torah. So once they're into the Torah, then they can't be misled according to all the statutes made up by Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So you could have 10 easy commandments, or you could have an extreme plethora of commandments and statutes. And people normally can't keep all the statutes in today's society. What makes you think they could keep the statutes and the Torah and all these other books where the sentencing is death? Language build is important. All this stuff is important because that's what breaks people down on what they say and their agreements that they become part of. And when people start worshiping the dead AI, they get Moat AI uploaded to their brain. So then they start thinking like Moat, and you'll see them repeat themselves whenever you're talking to somebody. Like if you're driving and maybe you're doing trash delivery and whatnot, you see the AI program repeat itself to a bunch of different people. Because the AI program is Chaim in the universe, but the other stuff gets trashed and destroyed.